SMEs through the exchange. In today's session, we will be discussing the unique avenues for SMEs to overcome the challenges of the pandemic and raise long-term capital through various instruments on the Nigerian exchange, NGX, if you call us that. My name is Olu Toby. I work with the Nigerian exchange, and we are excited that you could make our time to join us for today's webinar despite your busy schedule. Before I introduce our speakers and get into the agenda, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. Please keep your microphone muted throughout the session, except if you're invited to make a contribution. This is directed at our speakers. For our attendees, we invite your active participation throughout the session via the chat box on your screen. If you think of any question at any point in time, kindly type it in the Q&A box, and our team will try their best to answer it or hold it for the appropriate Q&A session towards the end of this program. Today's session promises to be truly engaging and insightful. The welcome address will be delivered by Divisional Head, Listings Business, the Nigerian Exchange, Mr. Bolumole Olumide. His welcome remarks will be followed by the President, Southeast Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, SESIMA, Mr. Humphrey A. Ngodadi. The next presentation will be delivered by Mr. Upong Akpanyang, who is the branch manager for the Port Harcourt branch of the Nigerian Exchange. His presentation will be focused on the features and opportunities of the Growth Board of the Nigerian Exchange, and what these opportunities that the Growth Board presents to business promoters. The Growth Board, if I may explain, is a dedicated platform for fast-growing companies such as SMEs operating in various sectors, including technology, and for companies to raise funds from the capital market. We will have an opportunity, of course, to ask Mr. Obong a few questions before we proceed into the panel discussion of business leaders and subject matter experts who would share valuable insights on the topic assessing finance for business growth in Nigeria. Remember to share your questions and answer your questions in the Q&A box so that the panel discussants can address them during the Q&A session, following the panel session. Our panel session will be moderated by Professor Uche Uwaleke, who is the Professor of Capital Markets at Nasarawa State University. Our panelists are Mrs. Constance Wake-Jiobi, who is the Director General, Boni Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, BOSIMA, Mr. Ruben Osai, who is the Managing Director and CEO of the Initiates PLC, Engineer Udensi Okwara, who is the Managing Director of Equitax Industries PLC, and Mr. Dumebi Ohawansi, who is a stockbroker with Solid Rock Securities and Investment PLC. At the end of the proceedings of today's webinar, Mr. Adeyemi Oshoba, who is the head of branch network at the Nigerian Exchange, will bring the session to a close by delivering the closing remarks. Thank you once again for joining us for today's webinar. I will now turn it over to Mr. Olumide Bolumole for his opening remarks. Mr. Bolumole, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Toby. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, other panelists, presidents of chambers of commerce, commerces and trade groups, and all the various associations that we have represented here. Good morning to you all. On behalf of the board and management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, I welcome you all to this webinar on capital raising for SMEs through the exchange. This is in furtherance of our commitment to educating business promoters on the alternative funding opportunities available in the capital market to catalyze business growth. We are pleased to host this event in collaboration with various trade groups, chambers of commerce in the South, and Southeast region of the country, and it's our hope that this webinar will be of immense value to you all. On the 10th of March this year, the Nigerian Stock Exchange received final approvals for its demutualization plan from the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, respectively, and has now completed its demutualization process. It fully transitioned from a member-owned company limited by guarantee to a public-owned company limited by shares. In this regard, a new non-operating holding company, the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, or NGX Group, has been incorporated with 3 operating subsidiaries, namely Nigerian Exchange Limited, or NGX, the operating exchange, NGX Regulation Limited, or NGX RegCo, the independent regulatory company, and NGX Real Estate Limited, or NGX RelCo, the real estate company. This demutualization, alongside the restructuring, will enhance the traditional role of the exchange, which is to serve as a platform for capital formation and liquidity for large and small corporates and also governments. Small and medium-sized enterprises are businesses that maintain revenues, assets, or a number of employees below a certain threshold. And several studies have indicated that they play an important role in any economy. Typically outnumbering large firms considerably, SMEs collectively employ vast numbers of people and serve as the engine for job creation, most especially in a developing economy such as ours. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, SMEs in Nigeria have contributed about 48% of the national GDP in the last 5 years. With a total number of about 41.5 million enterprises, with the South and Southeast regions collectively representing 33% of SMEs across all sectors of the economy. This segment also accounts for 96% of operational businesses and 84% of employment. Despite significant contributions of the SME segment, the reality and headwinds faced by operators are quite daunting. The economic landscape in recent years has proven quite challenging, with infrastructural and other burdens experienced by larger corporates have been amplified with SMEs. These companies have seen declining productivity rates caused by deficiencies in power supply, lack of right-sized and right-priced financing, multiplicity of taxes, levies, and fees, as well as limited availability of requisite talent. This is further compounded with an absence of needed corporate governance to ensure maximized capacity utilization and profitability for the companies. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, recent rise in inflation, as well as the Naira devaluation, has also negatively impacted businesses and industries unable to reflect in pricing for products and services. In view of the challenges experienced by SMEs, there is a need for these companies to scale, allowing them to better navigate the business environment, thus requiring medium to long-term capital. A common outcome of research studies and discussions on SMEs indicate that despite their economic importance, SMEs struggle to gain access to adequate financing to enable them to grow and truly realize their potential. The exchange as a platform for capital formation has products and services to support capital raising by various categories of corporates. For instance, despite the impact of COVID-19, NGX has functioned to facilitate needed financing with over 2.5 trillion in capital raised by governments and corporates in 2020 across various asset classes. This has continued into this year with over 2.4 trillion raised through equity, debt, and other products. The webinar has been put together to educate participants on the alternative funding opportunities available in the capital market through NGX. Last year, we launched the NGX Growth Board, designed to support companies in their growth phase, and this board notably caters to SMEs. I welcome all our stakeholders participating in this webinar and hope that the learnings from today's discourse will further spur the growth of SMEs. I thank you all for listening and anticipated contributions, and I wish us all fruitful deliberations. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bolumole, for your opening remarks. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the President, Southeast Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, SESIMA, Mr. Humphrey A. Ngunadi, to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Ngunadi.
Thank you very much. All protocol observed. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Executive Council and members of Southeast Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mine and Agriculture, SESIMA, I commend the Board of Directors and Management of Nigerian Exchange Limited for organizing webinar on capital raising for small and medium enterprise through the stock exchange. I also thank the organizers for extending this invitation to me to give the keynote address at this event, as it reflects the recognition of the role played by the Chamber of Commerce in promoting the growth and competitiveness of private enterprise in the Southeast and across Nigeria. Truly, the significance of small and medium enterprise for the growth, productivity, and competitiveness of economy of developing countries is universally recognized. Empowered the largest percentage of labor force and provide an avenue to harness entrepreneurial capacities, technology, skill, and innovation. However, it has been our experience in the Chamber of Commerce that small and medium-scale enterprises face a wide range of challenges that negatively impact their ability to fulfill this potential. These challenges often include financial mismanagement, poor record keeping, the poor state of infrastructure in the economy, multiplicity of tax and levies, limited access to market, and poor access to finance. In the post-COVID reality, the challenges has taken up even more worrisome form. Thus, there is need to focus on non-traditional solutions to problems to have continued to impact small, medium enterprises. Events such as this, which focus on the issue of access to finance, are crucial to promoting private sectors-led solutions. Solutions like the Nigerian Stock Exchange Growth Board, which promises to raise long-term capital and promote liquidity for small and medium-scale enterprises, while economic growth, corporate governance practices. It is my sincere hope that this initiative will complement other available funding mechanisms for micro, small, and medium enterprise, such that business will remain afforded to support economic progress and linkage with biggest owned companies. To help cushion COVID-19 pandemic impact and stimulate individual activities and secure jobs, the government launched various palliative measures, such as 100 billion micro and small medium enterprise investment fund, 15 billion grant offtake stimulus scheme, and 60 billion survival fund. Those are part of broader 2.3 trillion economic stability plan to limit excess decline in economic growth from the coronavirus outbreak. This would also minimize the accompanying prospect of business failure, job losses, increased poverty, option diva, and the optimality and device distribution of the directives. Today's event to showcase the implementation of the private sector-led market-driving initiative. Going forward, I'm hopeful that today's initiative by the Nigerian Exchange Limited will spur greater interest to the activities of the Growth Board by the private sector, as the Growth Board is a continuous effort to give credence to small, medium enterprises, which are the building block of the Nigerian economy. In turn, as more companies seek exchange listing, the country will be able to reduce the size of informal sector currently established at 40 trillion naira and draw more people out of poverty. I have been briefed and assured that listing process has been streamlined in view to fast track the admission of companies on the exchange. To this end, please accept my assurance that NASTIMA and of course SESIMA will be willing to work with market operators to promote transaction and interest in the Growth Board. In conclusion, I note and commend the participation of other private sector stakeholders at this visual program. The executive and members of Southeast Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mine and Agriculture, SESIMA, other trade group, and members organized private sector, OPS. I look forward to further collaboration with the Nigerian Exchange Limited in the interest of the national economy, and assure you of our commitment to projects such as this that promote the growth and competitiveness of Nigerian business. Thank you for listening. I'm Mr. Humphrey Ngona, the National Vice President, NASIMA, and President of Southeast Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Humphrey, for your very, very insightful opening remarks. We learned from your presentation that financial management, poor record keeping, limited access to market, and poor access to finance are key challenges that SMEs face. The Growth Board is designed to support SMEs in their quest to raise long-term capital despite these challenges. Please welcome Mr. Ubong Akpanyang, the branch manager, Port Harcourt branch of the Nigerian Exchange, to make his presentation on the proposition of the Growth Board. Over to you, Mr. Ubong.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard, my name is Mr. Ubong Akpanyang. I work for the Nigerian Exchange Limited. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian Exchange Limited love SMEs, and we are really passionate about their sustained growth and success. That is why we are organizing this webinar with the topic, Capital Raising Opportunities for SMEs through the Nigerian Exchange Limited. I'm going to take us through the SME ecosystem by the Growth Board. I'll also compare Nigeria with other jurisdictions, funding for startups and SMEs. I'll give an overview of the Growth Board, benefits of the Growth Board, why the criteria that you're needed to have before you, but that you need to have before you're listed on the Growth Board, the difference between the Growth Board and the alternative securities market, value-added services offered by the Nigerian Exchange Limited to companies that are listed on the Growth Board, and the listing segment of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Like my divisional head rightly said, Nigeria has a total of 41.5 million SMEs. And of this 41.5 million, they contribute 47.8% to the Nigerian GDP. We know the challenges and threats that SMEs has faced. The keynote speaker had mentioned some: access to finance, access to information, insecurity, ease of doing business and government policies, multiple taxation, infrastructural gaps, foreign exchange rates and frustration and fluctuations, and talent acquisition and retention. Now, according to Oxford Economics, the alternative sources for SMEs to raise finance to either expand their businesses or for operating capital. We have debt, we have equity, we have loans, we also have trade credit from banks, overdraft, and credit lines. Now, like I said, I'm going to compare what we have in Nigeria with other jurisdictions. Historically, we have 25 companies that have been listed on the alternative securities market of the Nigerian Exchange Limited before now. So out of this 25, 14 of those companies have migrated to the main board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. And so we have 9 of them listed, that's SMEs listed on the exchange. Nigeria ranks very low in terms of growth companies that are represented in the capital market. Like I said, we have only 9 of them. And as at Q3 2020, the total market cap of these 9 companies was 6.97 billion naira. What are the funding for startups that we have in the Nigerian Exchange Limited? We have initial public offers, we have placings, we have listing by introduction, we also have right issue and special purpose acquisition company. I'm sure most of us know what we mean by initial public offer. We have two of them: the offer for subscription and the offer for sale. What is offer for subscription? Offer for subscription is a portion of your authorized shares, an unused portion of the authorized shares of a company that is released to the public to purchase. The capital obtained from these sales goes directly to the company. Offer for sale is where a company's already issued capital is offered to the public by shareholders of the company. The capital derived therefrom goes directly to the divesting shareholder. We also have listing by introduction. Listing by introduction is a situation where a company's shares is listed on the exchange without an initial public offer. That means the company had raised its funds before coming to list on the exchange. Now, we also have placing. Placing involves an invitation of selected high net worth individuals or corporate organizations to invest directly in a company's issue. Right issue. Right issue is where existing shareholders of a company listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited are offered additional shares in the company based on their preemptive rights at a specified price and time period. We also have the special purpose acquisition company. This is where a company raises an IPO and use the proceeds from the IPO to take up shares in unspecified companies. Now, how do we identify growth companies? A growth company can be identified by the following characteristics: a business that generates significant positive cash flow or earnings, which increase significantly faster than the rates that you have in the overall economy. It also tends to have very profitable reinvestment opportunities for its own retained earnings. It usually performs better or expected to perform better than industries in the economy or the market as a whole. Companies that generate a return of equity that is greater than 15% generally are classified as growth companies. Now let's look at the growth board of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Like my divisional head rightly said, the growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited was launched in January 2020 to elevate the capital market in Nigeria and also meet the needs of businesses in the face of their life cycle. What are the objectives of the growth board? The growth board was launched to encourage growth-oriented companies with good corporate governance standards to list. It also aims to encourage companies with high growth potentials to seize the opportunity of raising long-term funds to promote liquidity. The growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited also highlights the benefits available in the capital market for startups and SMEs in the economy. What are the benefits of the growth board? The growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited provides valuation and potentially enhances liquidity of companies listed on it by assessing new investors. It also serves as an exit option for core investors. It also provides global visibility for companies to international investors. That is for the issuers. Now, what are the benefits of the growth board to investors? It gives the investor the ability to invest in companies with high growth potential, thereby resulting in high returns and capital appreciation. It also gives the investor diversified investment options for revenue and for retail and institutional investors. What makes a company qualify to list on the growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited? Every issuer seeking admittance to the growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited shall make a written application and execute general understanding for listing on the growth board. The growth board has two segments, the entry segment and the starter segment. Now, for each segment, there are two routes to be listed. Route 1 is where a company already listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited or the alternative securities market on the main board is seeking to list on the growth board. The first most important criteria is that the company must be a public limited company. It must be publicly limited by shares at the Corporate Affairs Commission. It must also have at least 2 years operation track record. It must have audited financials that are IFRS standard. It must also have a revenue growth of 20% cumulative operations in 2 years. Now, the second route is for startups, companies that are starting operations and want to list on the growth board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, must show evidence of a core investor or a technical partner that has invested in that company. And that core investor or technical partner must have 2 years operating track record, or a majority shareholder who is a high net worth individual or a director of a listed company. Now, for the entry segment, the market cap of any company that wants to list on the entry segment must be between 50 million and 500 million naira, as at the date the exchange receives the issuer's application. It must have a minimum free float of 10% of its issued share capital. Now, what is a minimum free float? Take, for example, a company is owned 100% by the issuer. The issuer is allowed to give out 10% out of the 100 to the public to purchase. That is to forestall a forcibly takeover from shareholders. Now, if you own 90% of a company, how can 10% shareholders come and take over your company? So the 10% free float is to forestall any issue of forcible takeover of a listed company. Now, the company must also have a designated advisor and have a minimum of 25 shareholders. It must also, its directors must also retain a minimum of 50% of their shares for a minimum of 12 months. Now, the standard segment also has 2 routes. The first route is similar to what is obtainable in the entry segment first route. Now, the second route has some differences from what is obtainable in the entry segment route 2. Now, a new company that is willing to list on this standard segment of the stock of the Nigerian Exchange Commission of the Nigerian Exchange Limited must show evidence of a core investor or a technical partner who has a minimum of 4 years operating track record. The majority shareholder must also be a high net worth individual. And the market capitalization for any company willing to list on the standard segment of the Nigerian Exchange Limited is between 500 million naira and 4 billion naira, as at the date the exchange receives the application of the issuer. It must have a minimum free float of 15% of its issued share capital. It must also have a designated advisor. It must also have a minimum of 51 shareholders. And the directors must retain a minimum of 50% of their shares for a minimum of 12 months. Now, if you look at this slide, you will see the criteria to list, like I said before. Now, the only difference between this slide and your network individual, the Securities and Exchange Commission has defined who a high net worth individual is. And we use that definition to accept who a high net worth individual is. What's the difference between the growth board and asset? On this slide, you can see that the ASEM was meant for SMEs, but the growth board is for startups, micro and small enterprises. Shareholders is 25, free float is 10%. For the standard segment is 51 shareholder and 15%. Now, for the research and business intelligence, the ASEM board had only value-added services, but the growth board has revamped value-added services. That means that the value-added services offered by the Growth Board has really improved. This is a list of the value-added services and the difference between what we have in the Growth Board and the SM. Now, what are value-added services? Value-added services are key elements of the Nigerian Exchange Limited business and development retention efforts. Now, the value-added services have 5 programs that we work with: analyst coverage, investors relations, institutional services, corporate access, and corporate governance. Now, these are the companies that promote or that provide the value-added services for the Nigerian Exchange Limited. We can see the 5 pillars of the value-added services, and we have companies that provide the services. We also have designated financial advisors to the Growth Board. These are the companies that provide those services for issuers that are willing and ready to list on the Nigerian Exchange Limited Growth Board. Now, these are the few updates we have on the Growth Board. The Growth Board has an index, which is also added to the all-share index of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. A closing gong ceremony for the 4 companies was held on the 4th of November, year 2020, to commemorate this historic milestone. There are 4 companies that were migrated from the SM board to the Growth Board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. And these companies are Chalarams PLC, Living Trust Mortgage PLC, McNichols PLC, and of course, the Initiate PLC. The MD of the Initiate PLC is one of our panelists today and is a company in my catchment area. I want to use this opportunity to congratulate them for migrating to the Growth Board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. I said earlier, we have 25 professional bodies that offer value-added services to companies that are listed on the Growth Board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Now, these are the listing segments that we have on the Nigerian Exchange Limited. We have the Premium Board, the Main Board, and the Growth Board. The beauty of this new structure is that companies, an SME can move from being on the Growth Board to being on the Premium Board, which is the highest board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Now, the Premium Board, any company listed on the Premium Board must have a market cap of over 200 billion naira. On the Main Board, the market cap is between 4 billion and 200 billion. For the starter segment of the Growth Board, the market cap, like I said earlier, is between 500 million and 4 billion naira. For the entry segment, the market cap is between 50 million naira and 500 million naira. These are the timelines that we have if a company wants to list on the Growth Board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. If it's an initial public offering, it takes 17 days to list. Now, the Growth Board has a fee structure, which was approved by our regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission. The initial listing fees for the entry segment is 250,000 naira. But the Board of Directors of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, during the launch of the Growth Board, had given a 50% discount for any company that lists within 24 months. That is between January 2020 and December 2021. So I want to implore all prospective issuers that are on this webinar to take advantage of this discount and list their companies. When you list during the discount period, you'll only pay the sum of 125,000 naira. Now, what is the way forward? We have to assess your funding needs and identify key areas that we can support you. We also articulate long-term goals and build consensus and stakeholder engagement. We also develop a roadmap and appoint parties to meet up our timelines. Thank you very much.
Olutobi, you are muted, please.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you, Mr. Obong, for your detailed presentation on the growth board and the opportunities it presents for SMEs. Because of time, we would take only one question before we proceed to the panel discussion. And this question is from Mr. Stephen Edward. He has asked, can private limited liability companies be listed on the Nigerian exchange? That question is for you, Mr. Ubong.
Private limited liability companies can be listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited. Yes. Toby, what was the question again? Sorry. A company must be a public
liability companies.
No, a company must be a public limited liability company before it's listed on the exchange. Private companies don't list.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ubong. Mr. Edward, I hope that Mr. Stephen Edward, I hope that addresses your question. The company must be publicly quoted as a PLC before it can list on the growth board. Thank you very much. We would then proceed quickly to the panel session. I had introduced our panelists earlier, but I will just introduce our panel moderator, who would guide us through the session. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Uche Uwaleke, Professor of Capital Markets, Nasarawa State University, to moderate this session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible enough. Let me start by thanking you for this privilege to moderate this session. My name is Uche Uwaleke, as you heard. I'm also the president of Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. It's one association that is trying to promote capital market development through teaching and research. And we're, of course, interested in getting companies listed on the exchange. This panel is meant to last for about 20 minutes. And we have listened to Obong's presentation, talk about the challenges, talk about the prospects and opportunities. So the panel is meant to shed more light on what Obong has presented. On the panel, we have distinguished ladies and gentlemen that will be doing justice to all of that. Let me start by introducing Dumebi Ohamusi, who is a capital market operator, a stockbroker with Solid Rock Securities Investment, PLC. We also have Engineer Udensi Okwara, who is the MD of Equitas Industries PLC. There is also Mr. Ruben Osai, the MD CEO of the Initiates PLC, and of course, the DG of Bonny Chamber of Commerce, by the name Mrs. Constance Woke Jobi. So it's my pleasure to welcome all of you on this panel. Let me start with you, the stockbroker. Dumebi. Now, if a company is seeking to raise funds across all the markets, whether equity or debt, can you tell us what factors that company should be considering?
Hello, come again. Come again, sir.
Yeah, Dumebi. Yes, I was saying, yes, what factors do companies seeking to raise funds across markets, consider when they do so, whether equity or debt?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Professor Waleke. I must say, the factors I'm going to list are they're not on the textbook, but from the 17 years I've been on the Southeast and South. I think the first should be the current or proposed capital structure of the company. Then the cost of even going into it from onset, whether it's flotation cost or other costs. Then the available interest rates as to whether equity or debt, particularly debt, because these are the two options. Then you look at the long-term goals of the promoters. Basically, there's a control imperatives there too. With what is going on globally now, there is the fear of the source and nature of the capital. Whosoever is coming, whether it's a technical partner or core investor, one has to be very careful. Is he coming in with clean funds, or is it laundered money, or what? These are the 6 main issues I've identified in the 17 years I've been on this side that investors look at before they think of even listing at all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dumebi. Did I hear you say they are not in we can't find them in any textbook?
If we go deep into it, they may not fall into the classical textbooks we use in schools or even in ad hoc places where we learn some of these things.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It would be interesting if you can also document them, do a book, and put all your experiences together. Well, that's also
definitely I will do so with you.
Thank you. Okay, I come to you, Engineer Udensi. It's also tied to the question I asked maybe. Okay, because I understand you are seeking opportunities from the capital markets. So could you share with us your reasons, for doing so? Engineer Udensi.
Your mic is muted. Sorry, I lost you. Come again, please. Can you come again with your question, please, Prof? Prof, are you hearing me? Hello? Are you hearing me, Prof?
Prof, are you there? Engineer, whilst Prof is trying to, I guess, get his microphone connected, the question was, he asked, broadly speaks to what informed your own decision to consider the capital markets.
Okay, thanks very much, Prof. Just like the first, when your opening speech and also the Vice President of Nasima said, a lot of things are affecting the SMEs. And one of those things that are affecting the SMEs in going forward in moving the company is accessing fund. Because if you go looking for fund to be able to develop your company, to take it to the next level, it's always been quite difficult. So for me, one of those things that have informed me is that if I come into this good market, there are opportunities that you can get investors, there are opportunities you can do an IPOs, which would also help in raising some funding so that this company will continue to grow. Because from all experiences, all the SMEs remain where they are at the time they started and almost at the time the company is going to die. So there is no growth. The company is stagnated. So I think that's one of the things that informed me to say, okay, go into this and see what we can, how we can get it at least and move the company to the next level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Engineer Udensi. I come to you, Mr. Osai. I hope you can hear me, Mr. Osai. Hello, Mr.
Yes,
Osai.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, let me start by asking you: do you think business promoters have sufficient understanding of the capital market, the opportunities in the capital markets, especially in relation to funding?
Thank you very much, Prof. First, I want to speak generally about the region where I am, where we are located our business, which is the South region, and I think it's the Southeast. The awareness is very, very low in these two regions from what I've seen. You can understand this clearly if you go to the street and talk with people around who are in business in this region. Just tell them that your company is listed. What is listed? I mean, in the South South and the Southeast. Go to any public place and introduce yourself or your company that your company is listed on the floor of the stock exchange. And they will begin to ask you, what is it for? So the awareness is very, very low. And I think that is a major task that the exchange need to take on, especially in the South South and Southeast region, for people here to be aware of the opportunities that are available and the things that they can benefit outside the opportunity of funding, also the visibility that their company can gain by being listed in the on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So I think the awareness is very, very low, generally speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with you. Because I remember there was a study that was conducted not too long ago on capital market awareness or capital market literacy rate across the regions. And that study showed that the Southeast region, the Northeast and Southeast region, had the least rate of capital market literacy. For the country as a whole, it was put at about 16%, but for the Southeast in particular, it was a major challenge. So I quite agree with you that awareness, is an issue. And coming to you, Mrs. Constance, you are the DG of the Bonny Chamber of Commerce. There's no doubt that chambers of commerce in this country have, been impacting the economy. From your end, what have you been doing, to encourage your members to consider listing on the exchange and raising, funds from the exchange? Because from the presentation we had now, the businesses can only grow with long-term funds and not short-term funds that come from banks. So what is your chamber doing to encourage businesses to approach the capital market?
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Basically, the Chamber of Commerce is relatively new. That's Bonny Chamber of Commerce. And our task, we've been mandated to champion the development of growth in Bonny Island as a one-stop destination for businesses while providing infrastructure projects and things that can create the work-life balance. So basically, from the Chamber of Commerce, what we've been able to create is a lot of awareness amongst the business community by exploring advocacy, capacity development for our members. We've engaged in trade missions to developed economies. Like last 2019, we were part of the Discover Global Market at Houston, seeking investors to come into the island for the projects. What we are actually saying is if you create the enabling environment, that will now spur businesses to come in to invest in businesses that are long-term, that require the long-term finances. Because if you don't create those structures, you won't even have SMEs seeking for a long time. It will just be short-term investments that will be spiraling. What we've done on our part, we've created a mixed-use project, development investment project, which is a proposed free trade zone. It's located within a 15-hectare land, and within it, there are several districts which we've provided, which is the industrial district, medical district, educational district. It has a residential district within a smart city. So what our focus is basically, you understand about the Train 7 projects in Bonny Island, which is a 12 billion project, awaiting 12,000 workers into the island. That's a very small island. So what we are doing is creating all those opportunities which we are seeking and attracting investors into the island. And now the SMEs can now embark on these projects that require long-term financing. So from our side is just putting all these enabling environments in place to attract investors to start looking at those opportunities. And our strategy, basically, we started off last year by working with the Innovation Hub, that's the NSC, in trying to engage the NSC, and then defining our funding and capitalization framework, then create a novel investment vehicle and platform and capture the audience attention like we're doing. From there, we will now start doing the fundraising. These projects will be executed by the members of the chamber in the long run. So those are the kind of platforms that we are creating from the Bonny Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, thank you, madam. It's good to know that you are discussing with the exchange, you are partnering with the exchange to make these things possible. Now, beyond the provision of conducive business environment, beyond the provision of infrastructure, which you know is the responsibility of the fiscal authority, what are the other things you expect the exchange to do, to support the business promoters, the accessing funds from the exchange?
Okay, basically, just as you uniquely
know.
In
what ways do you think? Yes, in what ways do you think the exchange should assist, your members in accessing funds from the capital markets?
Sure. What we are saying is that each location and each project, they are quite unique. You don't really have to fit every of the projects into a template. So the SMEs require capacity development that will help to scale up their businesses. Like one of the speakers rightly mentioned, the capital market awareness is quite low within this section. So from the Chamber of Commerce, we have our Enterprise Development Center where we wish to have that session where our businesses can scale up to be even able to understand and be aware of the opportunities that exist. So we require the partnership of the exchange to support our businesses to be able to tap into what exists. And just to make a clearer clarification, within the chamber, we have different sectors. There are firms that can support fellow businesses. So we have also within it, business development and advisory firms within the Chamber of Commerce. So looking at the exchange and asking for what we need is the partnership to be able to execute properly so that the knowledge gap will be closed out and the members will now be equipped properly with the required knowledge that they need to be able to understand what the opportunities are in the capital market. Yeah. Thank you, Prof. So basically, I think I've made an answer, and then we need to understand as well that the socio-economic locations differ. You need to understand the people, you need to understand the different locations and create programs that fit into that location. So if the exchange is dealing with the chamber in Bonny Island, the understanding of who the people are and what they really need, that study has to really be taken. Thank you. Okay, so Prof, I think you're muted.
Prof, are you there? Okay, so while we wait for Prof, perhaps we can take a question from the audience. It has been quite an active session with the audience asking a lot of interesting questions.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, Prof, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, so I will go ahead.
Okay, I was saying, staying with you, Mrs. Constance, if you don't mind. I want to remain with you for a while. Bonny Island is noted for oil and gas. I want to stay with Mrs. Constance briefly in Bonny. When I asked about your expectation capacity building, yes, that's fine. But hello.
Yes, I'm with you, Prof. I'm with you, Prof.
Yes, you talked about capacity building and so on. Bonny Island has so many oil and gas companies, oil and gas firms, which want to, come to the market. This economy is an oil economy, and we don't have so many oil and gas companies listed. And for them to list, what kind of support, I ask again, do you expect from the exchange? Earlier on, we listened to the conditions for listing. For example, would you want some of the conditions, as the conditions stringent? Do you want some of them maybe relaxed for your oil and gas companies coming from the region? Beyond capacity building and the things you're currently doing with the exchange, what would you expect the exchange to do to support a lot of companies from that region coming to list?
Well,
fluctuation.
Okay. Basically, you've rightly identified the gaps, meaning asking the questions if you want some of the conditions to be relaxed. This is Nigeria. And we are all business people playing in the same field. I would say rather that more awareness, more literacy, more capacity development is required. I'll take an example with the Train 7 development that is on in Bonny Island. It's a project that requires capacity in terms of experience and funding. So our Nigerian companies will be at a disadvantage when it comes to financing certain contracts, right? So from the Bosima end, what we're trying to do is work with partners to create several platforms. The capital market is a platform, but unless you create that literacy awareness, the members might not really know, or the companies that are in that region might not really know that that's an opportunity. So we're still getting back to that point, saying, let's bring it down to the grassroots to understand the entire things that are required and create the enabling environment that will even attract the particular businesses there. What we have done basically is having some outstanding achievements in providing alternative transportation into and out of the island. If you provide the right infrastructure and the right things that are supposed to be put in place, we can actually start looking at the main businesses to now know whether is it right to step it down or is it right to remain at school? What is actually missing? What's the missing link? We can identify that at that end. From capacity development as well, from the chamber, what we've tried to do is to bring in professional bodies into the island. Instead of just being outside there and supporting, bring them into the island. The ICANN is actually coming into the island. We have the professional bodies there now coming in to support. So if we have all these stakeholders in, we can play at the level playing ground without really saying relax or not relax. Let's get the required skills first, then we can address the next issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam. Back to you, Dumebi, the capital market operator. You have been in the capital market for a while. I heard you say 17 years. Now, from your experience, what can you say are the major? Some of them we have had here. We have listed in the presentation made by Obong. But tell us what you think are the major challenges that are preventing SMEs from coming to list. Over 41.5 million SMEs we have been told, and you know, an insignificant number is listed. What are the challenges? And also speak to a few you know, suggestions before you you conclude.
Yeah, thank you. I think my co-panelist, Mr. Sai, and the Bonnie chairman, or the actual chairman, they've raised some issues that are very vital as challenges. I don't think it's just awareness, it's complete ignorance. Especially for those who are running that are investors now. If you, from Onitsha to Newi to other areas, this is a hub that are known for investment. Most of the warehouses or factories have now been turned into churches. They don't even know what stock exchange is all about. We've been involved in advocacy. I'll come to that later. The issue of control and ownership is there. And it's worsening because their children are not here. They are not interested in what is happening, and the socio-economic environment of the country is not helping matters for the generation, their generation, to push ahead, to do more than what their parents have done. There is a very funny issue where I quite agree with Bonnie and Chairman. Family and partners disposition. The sight of the average man in Southeast is different from that of the South-South. We know they are very Republican. I tell you, maybe that's part of what I'm going to partner with you. For the communists we have visited in the last 17 years, whosoever is not running the business, we insist on some unimaginable terms before they let go or access money. That issue that has to. Then you look at the cost of flotation. Yes, we have said it. The cost is very high because there is no resource persons are not on ground. If you tell a registered accountant who is registered as a capital market operator to come to Lagos and do some conversion or assessment or do a write-off for you, the companies would prefer, the investors would prefer to stay how they are. They say small is beautiful. That's one adage they always use. So there are some inherent problems we have to face squarely before there is this family and personal disposition. Say, all right.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Dumebi.
So,
thank you, Dumebi. Before we close this session, I will still want you to touch on one or two areas you think recommendations, specific recommendations to address some of the challenges you mentioned. Back to you, Engineer Dancy. Dumebi has painted the picture of the business environment in the Southeast. I want you to, expand on that because that's where your business is located, and also tell us in what ways.
Prof.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes. I was saying that Dumebi has already given us a picture of what it is in the Southeast. Yes. We know it's full of challenges, and it's now being worsened by insecurity. So that is where your business is located. Can you expand on this? Your experience operating in that area, and also tell us what you think that can be done to boost the manufacturing sector in Nigeria. This is one sector that contributes 10% to GDP, as we have also had
from the angle of SMEs, over 47% to GDP, and yet we can't feel the impact of the manufacturing. Should be done to boost the manufacturing sector, in Nigeria, especially from the angle of the capital markets. But first, tell us your experience doing business in the Southeast.
Well, I will talk my experience doing in the Southeast and the South-South, because I also happen to be the chairman of Edo Delta Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. What has been said in the past, it's purely the reality, because people do not really understand what it means by listing, what it means by capital market. It sounds strange. Even when you call your colleagues or your fellow members in MAN, for instance, and you try to educate them on this is one of the ways to go, they don't believe it. And if you talk about the Southeast, you find out that also people believe that when they are also listed, that the business is gone. Somebody is coming to take over their business. They're no longer the chairman, they're no longer the managing director. So people are scared. But if more awareness is being done to people to understand that, yes, there is a way the company can be structured, you're still the owner. Nobody is coming to take it over. So I think that is still one thing that the NGX needs to really look into, to still continue this enlightenment to people so that they can do it. However, in terms of business have not been quite smooth in these areas based on the fact that there are lack of funding. Lack of funding has been one of the major challenges. I can tell you in this area, if you go to the banks that you want to get some funding to establish, to grow your business, nobody is willing to listen to you. And that is also one of the problems that even the people in this, our South-South and Southeast region are even thinking that when you now come again with this capital market, they will just come and take my company. The company that I have suffered, I have built for many years, somebody will come and take it over. So the enlightenment is there. Going to the essence that what would the NGS do for us in this area to boost up the economy in the manufacturing sector? It's how can we, the manufacturing people, how can we get long-term funding? That is the bottom line. How can we get long-term funding? If you can get a long-term funding and people, it's proven to other persons that, this company A, yes, was able to be listed, he was able to get long-term funding, this company A is moving. So that company A becomes a standard to which references will be made. Maybe that could gear people to say, if this thing has happened to this company, that means if I go there, I'm going to succeed. So as at now, those of us that are even going into it, we are going into it basically either because of a little bit of knowledge, our enlightenment that is making us go into it. Because if not, we could also be scared and relax where we are. So I think that what they could do for us is to try and see how they can get funding. I know what they've listed there. These are the ways you can get funding. You have to do this shareholding. You have to get investors. But they need to play a major role in this. Advising us, and we'll get it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for those how can they get long-term funding? Let me turn to Mr. Ruben Osai. Mr. Ruben Osai, you're a promoter of a listed company. So maybe you also see the opportunity and share your experience with regard to the factors limiting participation in the capital market by business promoters.
Sorry, say factors limiting what? Limiting participation? Can I hear you?
Yes, yes. Your experience. What are the factors? Others have said one thing or the other. What factors limit participation of business promoters in the capital markets?
Oh, very good. So many things. Again, awareness is ranked #1 within our region. #2 is the propensity of our entrepreneurs in Nigeria, especially in the South, Southeast, to have sole ownership of their business. This is a critical one. It's a cultural idea. Our businesses are identified with us and our names. Most of the businesses you say something and something and son, the other man and the other one and son. You know, they try to personalize it. That is a major area. Also, perceived exposure to tax and further regulations, especially when they have seen regulation in Nigeria as instrument of corruption. So many people see that exposing your company and yourself to these may also pinch on your returns. Again, the other issue I see here that is also critical is the clear understanding that trust is required. And most people within this region are not easily liable to disclosure. And without disclosure, the trust is lost. So trust is a major thing. Another problem that I think may be an issue is within this region, I will tell you strictly that there are limited professionals, either practicing or resident in this region, in the professional or stock exchange, capital market professionals. We lack it in this region. Even if you are looking for a lawyer in Southeast, South, that can tell you details of what the stock exchange requires, very few of them are available. So unlike people who are in Lagos, every day they rub minds with people, and then people who know the sector, that is the capital market sector. So these are major issues that the stock exchange will need to look into to see how they can develop the professional sector within this region. Because without that, it will be difficult. If you want to meet a professional, definitely from the South, Southeast, you are going to Lagos. And this is not too good. It also adds up to what your expenses will run, the expenses you are going to run with. So these are critical issues with regard to it. Identification is #1, awareness is #2, our lack of trust, and are also not desiring to expose ourselves to tax, especially when the way we see tax these days, because monitoring is expensive. Compliance, if you are already registered like me, a listed company, compliance and monitoring is a major tax, and it's expensive to run it because you have a kind of a standard overhead that you'll be carrying. Whether you do business or you don't do business, you need to report and do all that. So these are part of the limitations I think I have noticed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Some of these limitations you have mentioned also hinge on regulatory rules and regulatory expectations. You talked about making sure that capital market services, get closer to the people. I agree with you. I recall, some time ago when the stock exchange, had branches in many parts of the country. The awareness then was, I would say, more than now when many of those branches have been shut. The same with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, had branches or offices in Onitsha, for example, and some other, but now these offices are no more. And of course, that is limiting the ability of these institutions to take the awareness to the grassroots. So talking about regulators and staying with you, Ruben, what do you think the regulators have done? Or let me put it this way, do you think the regulators have put in place adequate measures to prevent the reoccurrence of the market crash we had in 2008? Because you have mentioned the issue of trust. A lot of people are still, those who had their fingers burnt are scared of coming back to the market. So do you think the regulators have put in place adequate measures to forestall a recurrence of the near market crash we had in 2008?
Prof, I think I would say reasonably well. I think there are not a lot of instruments that are in place, especially if you look at the SEC Act of 2017, which has also been further reinforced by regulations released by the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, the one on corporate governance, the one on also on audit. These are critical instruments, legal instruments that have been put in place to foster sharp practices, and also there is increased monitoring, both from the exchange and from SEC. Reporting has also improved. A lot of things that are not hitherto being reported are coming up on the board. Are coming on board now in reporting. For example, if you look at the corporate governance reporting framework that is being released that companies listed should be following now, I think it's quite intense because various arms of checks have been implemented, have been instituted in those reporting instruments. So there's increased monitoring, there's also increased reporting, be it voluntary reporting and mandatory reporting has improved. So I think reasonably well, I would say, coupled with these two regulations and the act, enough instrument is in place. And with what has happened also with the stock exchange being divided and made to work independent of the other listing and the regulating arm. Now the stock exchange is now much more organized because their regulatory arm will work efficiently now and independent of the listing section.
Thank
so
you
I
very
think
much.
reasonably well, they have done well in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you. I take that as your closing thoughts. May I also give one minute to other members of the panel to give their closing thoughts. I start with you, Dumebi. Your closing thoughts in 1 minute, and please in your closing thoughts how we can drive more investors to the secondary segment of the market. Dumebi, 1 minute.
Maybe it's muted.
Yeah, Dumebi, you're muted. Can you?
Okay. Yeah.
Unmute.
I say, I have done so. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I say I'm happy you are part of it. You've heard what Mr. Osai said in respect of lack of professionals. I think we should engage in very stringent advocacy. All the parties involved, exchange, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, SEC, NASIMA, MAN, so that we let people in our areas know the essence of this. More importantly, Prof, you see, if we introduce capital market courses in our institutions, most of our people will not go to Lagos to go and hire a very small shop and be selling milk or used dresses. So I'm going to partner with you so that we now institute some of these things that we have highlighted. Strong advocacy is very important.
Thank you very much.
By all the parties, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. God bless you. Engineer Densi, a minute, your closing thoughts, please.
I would say thanks so much for all the whole discussions we've had. At least we have gotten some input. It's left for the NGX group to take into considerations all that we have said. But once again, as a person that is trying to list, and in order to get people involved, they should please see how they can help in making funding available for manufacturers through this capital market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think the point is well noted. Ms. Constance, your final words.
Yeah, at this time, we're happy with NGS and what they have done so far in its restructuring. So just to make it, which has made it easier for us to deal with them, but we will encourage closer interactions with the chamber in terms of when the policies and regulations are being set up so that we all just get conscious of it, and adoption of these strategic options will be easier to deploy. We all understand the dramatic changes that the world order has brought in through the ICT and COVID-19. So deploying the new measures as well will require new options to be able to deploy them. If there are tax holidays and incentives available, that will encourage investment attractions into the region. Just like my other panelists have mentioned, awareness is key, very key. Advocacy is key, and from the chamber, we will push, we will be part of the system, we will be part of the move to make sure that all the regulatory frameworks are better understood by our members and access to the financing, which is key, is made available. So we believe that with strength, or the assurance that the NGS has brought on board will help us a lot better and provide legitimacy in doing business within the region.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Constance. I want to thank you very much, the wonderful panel, for the insights you have provided. One thing that keeps ringing all through is awareness, is capital market literacy. I mean, it's like a common string. And I'm pretty sure that, especially with the mutualization of the exchange, a lot more benefits will accrue, not only to the exchange itself, but also to investors. And we want to see more companies, getting listed following the mutualization. So thank you very much, Dumoedi. Thank you, Engineer Densi. Thank you, Mrs. Constance and Ruben. Indeed, we are very grateful. So can we put our hands together for the panel? Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Waleke, our moderator, and our panel discussants for such an insightful discussion. Thank you very much, all our participants, for taking out time to attend. Thank you for your insightful questions as well. My colleague has been taking out time to address all the questions that have come from our participants and attendees. We've come to the end of this session today. Without further ado, I will call on Ms. Adedemola Banu, Department of the Nigerian Exchange, to deliver the closing remarks and bring this to.
Thank you, Olutobi. We've had about an hour and a half of insightful presentation and discussion. It is my pleasure to say we've come to the end of this webinar. I would like to thank the National Vice President of NASIMA, who is also the President of Southeast Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture, SECIMA, Mr. Humphrey Nonadi, for support and collaboration towards ensuring the success of this event. We have been able to bring together government, investors, business promoters, academia, corporate, and chambers of commerce to deliberate on the challenges facing the SMEs, and most importantly, to discuss the initiative and opportunities available through the Nigerian Exchange Limited. I would also like to commend our panelists for their robust and intuitive discussion. The challenges that face SMEs are enormous, and it has been established that access to finance comes foremost. The available opportunities through the Nigerian Exchange Limited has been expressly put out today. We have been able to see that growth board of the NGX was put together to elevate the Nigerian capital market and meet the needs of businesses at every phase of their life cycle. Please be assured that all the recommendations will be reviewed by the exchange and, where applicable, implemented to further facilitate the growth of SMEs. Finally, I wish to thank the board and executive management of the Nigerian Exchange Limited for its prioritization of this segment of companies and for this great platform. Thank you everyone for joining us, and please keep safe. Thank you.